Welcome to Real Talk for Real Fundraisers, the podcast where fundraisers, nonprofit leaders, and industry experts come together to vent, laugh, and learn. Through candid storytelling and insightful interviews, we explore the highs, lows, and everything in between. With a fearless, irreverent, and conversational tone, we're breaking down barriers, challenging the status quo, and creating a safe space to tackle the real struggles of the nonprofit world, one honest conversation at a time. Now here's your host, Jeff Schreifels.
Welcome to the show, and thanks for joining me today. I want to talk about why qualifying donors before they get into your portfolio is probably one of the most important things you can do as an MGO. So to help me discuss this, I've invited Diana Frazier, our Senior Client Experience Leader here at Veritus, to join me. Diana has over 40 years of fundraising experience. She's led development teams, she's been an MGO, and she's been with us for over 13 years, working with hundreds of MGOs, walking with them as they qualify donors. So let's bring her in and let's get ready for some real talk. All right, Diana.
Okay,
here
Jeff,
we are.
Here we go.
You know, I feel like this is the most important thing, and it's one of my favorite subjects because I feel like if everyone could get this right and have qualified donors in their portfolio, major gift officers would be happier, donors would be happier, organizations would raise more money, and just everyone's well-being in the state of development of relationship-based fundraising would be in a much better place. And so that's why I wanted to discuss this with you. And specifically, I wanted to bring you on because you've been doing this a long time and you have successfully walked alongside of major gift fundraisers for years in how to navigate this, because it's not easy, is it?
All right. So what's your question?
Well, I want to know, why do you feel making sure donors are qualified before entering a portfolio is really important? Just give us the big reason why this is so important.
There are two sides to that. And let's start with the donor side, because I think ultimately that's the most important side when you think about it.
Yeah.
From a donor perspective, it means somebody has connected with them and they've had the opportunity to say yes, no, or what they want to hear from an organization. When a donor gets that opportunity to be that clear and specific, it changes the relationship with the organization, because now they'll move into an engagement level based on their terms, if you will. And for the donors who don't want it, they're allowed to be who they are and what level they want. So that's the donor side of it. The gift officer side of it is you're then working with the donors who want engagement, and you're no longer chasing things down, beating your head against a wall. And from a leadership perspective, your gift officers are being held accountable to donors who actually want engagement and not being held accountable to a revenue stream for people who haven't said actually that they want anything. So there's kind of three sides to it, but fundamentally it's the donor part that matters the most for the long-term health with the organization.
Yeah. Well, why don't you give us a clear definition of what we mean at Veritus by qualified donor first?
It's a donor really who has agreed to two-way communication with you. They've said yes to taking a phone calls, having a meeting, or just to go deeper, even if it's text exchange or email exchange. They have said, yes, I want to know more, and having you reach out to me is okay. That is, in a nutshell, what it is. It's not mysterious.
Yeah.
Now, those donors are in your giving range for whatever you consider to be major gifts, or at least at the threshold point where you enter in. So there's a giving part of it. And capacity is not part of it. Capacity scores can be helpful pieces of information, but they're not a pillar in this.
Yeah. Yeah. Now, you've worked with hundreds, as I said at the beginning, you worked with hundreds of major gift officers over your career. What are some of the problems you see when MGOs don't have qualified donors in their portfolio?
I can think of two that I'm working with right now.
Okay.
One who has been around her organization for quite a few years and has a fairly large number of donors assigned to her, and one who is newer with the organization, under 1 year, but inherited some donors. So let's go with the guy who came in the door and inherited donors. He had probably 300-ish assigned to him.
Hmm.
And by going through the gut check process, what we call gut check, to let's, dig into what what's in the CRM and what have you already learned. He was actually able to identify quite a few that were truly two-way engagement qualified. What that did for him in his first year, he was then able to create real plans for those people that made sense to the donors, set goals that made sense to the donors, and he's reporting back a much more satisfying experience himself as well as for the donors, because he knows what they care about. So there's that piece of it. Then he has those who didn't have the two-way engagement, and he has a clear pathway how to reach a yes or a no on that.
Hmm.
So it gave him instant clarity.
Yeah.
Well, the process drives someone to go back and just yay, nay, true. What's the true state of this? And when
Yeah.
I was a fundraiser, I would do this quarterly to make sure I was on track of, when have I talked to them lately kind of thing. So that's his story. The other person has been there, 2 decades really. And easily 400 donors assigned. But because she couldn't tell the trees from the forest, like there was so much data coming at her at any given time that she was unable to focus.
Mm.
And so going through our process, it turned out under 50 were truly two-way engagements. So once we peeled those off and she began to work with the 50, she also gained clarity. Revenue starts coming in. It's just a different ballgame. And she too has now a process to deal with the others. She's just had so many people assigned to her with no distinction
Yeah.
in the level of engagement. And what happens is some of the donors get missed. They just frankly get missed in the month-to-month communication. It's just too many to handle. And they don't know what to even send them.
Yeah. I mean, that story seems indicative of a lot of stories that I've heard where we've come in and, okay, the major gift officer has 200 or 300 people assigned to them in their portfolio. And then we always do this thing before we start working with them, we call gut check, and that is, okay, let's go over all of these donors. We want to know, who do you know really, really? And you might have 200, 300 and they know maybe 25
Mm-hmm.
really well.
Yep.
And you're like, okay, what happened here? How did a major gift officer over the time acquire 300 people in their portfolio? Now, it could be from management that said, here's 300 people, like a university, here's 300 people. They have capacity to bring in $4 million. You have 2 years to bring it in, you know? Or it's just over time, someone hits a threshold and then they go, oh, well, they're a major donor. They should be in your portfolio. And no one really does anything with that donor. But because they've been giving through other means like the direct response program, or they just give on their own, they keep them in the portfolio because the overall portfolio looks pretty good. But when you actually get down and go, well, do you know these people? They don't, because there's just way too many people, as you say.
Yeah.
They don't know them. And they're only going to, work these 25 that they've probably known. So, I mean, this qualifying thing really forces everyone.
Yeah. That's what it does. It helps. It actually gives the gift officer confidence over time, frankly,
Yeah.
because first you find out what's your baseline. Where am I? Whatever the reason, doesn't really matter. Let's figure out where you are now, and then you can create plans that are solid. A lot of times when donors keep getting added in, and so the caseload or portfolio counts growing, if there isn't a really good process for what it means to go through those steps, you get a one and done. Oh, I called them once and they didn't answer.
Yeah.
Okay. Was it their job to call you back? Did you not think about trying again?
Exactly. I know.
Right. So but that's sheer volume coming at them. So some of that is the volume coming at the gift officer. And when you don't have structure and a system in place, you lose sight of it. You lose track.
Well, and we lose sight of what the job of the major gift officer actually is, and that is finding out the donor's passions and interests and matching that up with all the programs and projects and inspiring them to give to those projects. You can't do that if you don't know who the donors really are.
Right. I think there's another component there, Jeff, and sometimes I see a great resistance for creating customized plans for donors they do know.
Yeah.
It's perceived as too much work.
Yeah.
But the reality is, if you did that work, everything becomes more clear and you spend less time spinning. So yes, you might spend a week really, and not 40 hours by any stretch, but you might spend a week really drilling down and creating custom plans for your donors, but that payoff is going to be there for the rest of the year.
Okay, I want you to help take me step by step for those that are listening on a practical level. Let's come up with a scenario, and let's just say you come in for the first time working with someone and they've got 200 people in their portfolio, and you know what they have to do. They have to qualify, and you don't know if they've never gone through a process of qualifying.
Mhm.
What are the steps you take immediately with that major gift officer? And then what are the steps to qualify those
Yep.
donors?
Well, the first is that gut check to get the donors into the right buckets, if you will, already have two-way engagement. But with those they don't, I even encourage two different buckets. A bucket of people who, if you sent them an introduction letter, they would think, I've been getting stuff from you for years.
Yeah.
So we would create another entry point to reboot that.
Yeah.
And then the people who truly getting an introduction letter would be fine because they haven't noticed you or there's not been much.
So going back to the gut check, though, what does that actually mean? You're sitting down with the major gift officer and you're going through every donor in that portfolio and
We
say,
donor.
what do you know about this donor? What interactions have you had?
Mhm.
And how they've talked to you or not talked to you, so you understand, are they qualified or not?
Right. And if they really know the story, they're qualified. Now there's some that maybe they don't know, and a survey tool would be really helpful for them, right? So there are pieces of what we call our qualification process that can be applied
Yeah.
to wherever donors are. But then once we get that established, we began what we would set the donors who are qualified aside. We do create goals and plans for them, but let's focus in on the those
Right.
who are not. We have a 7-step process that if it's really followed, we'll get to 1/3 will say yes to engagement. We've seen
Yes.
it again and again and again.
Right.
And we also have seen if you stick with those who won engagement, you will raise more money from those who won engagement than from the 400 or
Right.
500 that were assigned to you.
Yes.
So it's in some ways, it's a very straightforward process. Introduction letter,
Well, hold
3-step.
on now.
Oh, yep.
Before you get there, okay, so now you've done the gut check. You've gone through 200 donors, and you've determined that 50 of them truly are qualified. They're put into a portfolio. And now you know you have 100 more donors you have to qualify, or you have 100 more donors that could qualify into that portfolio, which means, as you said, you need about 300 in the pool
Mhm.
to qualify to the 100, right? Okay, now go.
Well, we don't usually give them 300 all at one time. That's a bit,
Right.
well, I mean, so we work in batches, and 3 months later, we might give them 15 more to get started. It starts with an introduction letter, and we do recommend it go in the mail, and it's hand addressed, and you've handwritten some kind of a note, whatever you can out of your CRM. Thanks again for your support over 10 years, or, whatever it is,
Yeah.
something to signal to the letter, that to the donor, this letter actually is to me, right?
Yeah.
So that does it. Then there's a 3-step follow-up. And this is critical because the letter goes out and 1 week later, there are 3 follow-ups that happen fairly quickly in succession. And we usually talk about phone, email. Some people do phone, email, phone. I don't have a horse in the race which you choose. What I care is there's fidelity to the timing because the timing matters. If you send a letter on February 1st and you don't call until March 12th,
Yeah. No one remembers.
right? That's
Yeah.
ridiculous. But if 1 week later you start your 3 follow-up process, you're gonna pick up quite a few people who actually answer the phone or reply to an email. Then we move on about 2 weeks later, just a content touch, something of content. You don't know what they care about yet. You're trying something. Often we talk about having something evergreen that
Mhm.
you could use with pretty much any donor that's core to your organization's mission,
Yeah.
and you just deliver something to them of value. So they, oh, okay, that's cool. Diana sent me that, right? Then 3 weeks later, we put a survey in the mail, and it's a customized survey to each organization's programs and services, but it has some coherence, no matter what client we're working with. And it asks a series of questions. It's 1 sheet of paper, 2 sides, no more, not from marketing. These
Yeah.
are questions for Diana to ask Jeff and for Jeff to answer to Diana.
Yeah.
We're not looking for directional marketing decisions here. Then a week later, we begin the follow up for the survey if you haven't heard back. Ideally, you can create an electronic survey, whether that's through, Google Forms or Microsoft Forms or SurveyMonkey, whatever it is.
Mhm.
Then you send an email with a link to a survey and ask
Mhm.
them again. Then you resend that. And
Mhm.
then if you still don't hear, you do a phone call and ask if you get them on the phone, are you open to answering a few questions on the phone?
Yeah.
So it's another 3-step follow-up. And again, the fidelity to the timing in doing this
Crucial.
is the key.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's the key. And then
Now,
we
and
go
you
to another, content touch and then
yeah.
a final note, a handwritten note. And this is the only time it's actually the donor's job, right? So at the end of the series, Jeff, sorry I have not been able to connect with you over the last several months. If you have any questions or concerns, please feel free to reach out to me.
Yeah.
That's at that stage, you're not going to keep going toward that donor.
Right.
It's their choice. They've had 10 opportunities to respond to you, and they have not. And we're using USPS, phone, email, text if you can. You can go onto LinkedIn and do a personal message, a private message through LinkedIn. That's a way to reach out to people.
Mhm.
But you're letting the donor say no by not responding, right?
Right.
Now, some
Right.
people will tell you no,
Yeah.
and then some will never respond. And you
Right.
just move them aside. And if you have a mid-level program, that might be a good place to go. If you're in a major gift team and you have an administrative assistant who does some work, maybe they can go there, say maybe get 3 or 4 touches a year, something.
Yeah.
But if you do that over time, 1/3 will say yes, and you live with those donors.
And that's a good thing. We wanna know those donors that want the relationship versus that don't, because I think a lot of major gift fundraisers probably get frustrated when they get the rejection or they don't hear back, but that's okay because as you said, if you stick with it, you will see that a third of them will engage
They will.
with you. Now, how long does that process usually take?
For any one donor, roughly 5-ish months, or
Yeah,
maybe a little less than that, maybe 4 months. For all the ones you're doing it, you could be done in 8 months.
yeah,
Depends. It's relative to what's going on in your world, where are vacations planned, if there are events in the organization's life that makes you maybe
yeah,
take a pause.
yeah,
I mean, but we create a plan so you know when there's an end.
right, right.
Coach, that's a big part of what I'm doing is cheerleading them on.
Well, yeah, I mean,
'Cause it's hard. It's
it
hard
is
work.
hard. I've had a number of people come up to me, whether I was at a conference or speaking somewhere, and they'll say this qualifying thing for them was the most important thing and sticking with it
Mhm,
because number of them would say it took like the fifth outreach to finally get a donor to connect with me.
mhm,
And number of people will say, if it was just left on my own, I'd only probably tried twice and go, oh, they don't want to hear from me or they don't want to engage. And so you make up a story in your head and you move on. But this process with like these 7 different steps and having a plan and when it goes out, and if you stick with that, good things will happen and it will exceed your expectations because we don't have much patience for
And
this.
you think of it from the donor side, how many people have reached out to him over the years? You might be the 5th gift officer in a row who's
Yeah,
never gone the course, if you will. Um, you're trying to cut through the clutter. Just, you send an email, remember, most people are looking on this.
yeah,
And they're reading your email while they're doing something else.
right.
While it's in commercials when they hit mute, or they're at the
Yeah,
grocery store online waiting to pay, or they're
right,
in a restaurant waiting for their friend to come. That's how most people are reading personal email. They are not sitting at their dedicated computer at their
right.
desk,
I know.
waiting for your words. They're just not. So you have to cut through that. You have to cut through the clutter and become relevant. And it takes time to A, they recognize your name over time, so you're
Yeah,
no longer a stranger. You're trusted because you've been delivering them some interesting things over time. And then somewhere along the line, there will be a tipping point, and it's not unusual to hear. Even you write that handwritten final note. I have been meaning to connect back with you. I apologize. I did have one gift officer tell me that when the donor finally got back to me, said, I fell off a ladder and I broke my back.
oh, yeah.
That's why he hadn't gotten back. But see, what story do we get in our head? They don't want
They
to
don't,
hear
yeah, I know.
anything. We forget they have life incidents. Their daughter might be having a baby, or their niece, or whatever is going on in their life. There's a lot going on. So be patient and be
Yeah.
persistent.
So here's another practical question. When you're qualifying and you also have donors already in your portfolio that are qualified, how do you qualify and cultivate that portfolio at the same time? Like, how do you keep it all straight?
Yeah. Well, the more qualified donors you have, you'll probably need to work with smaller groups on the qualification process, because every time someone gets qualified, you're creating a goal and a communication plan. So you have to balance that out for time allocation. It also might be relative to the time of year too. Like, so if it's in
Yes.
Q4 of the calendar year, it's harder to keep the qualification going full steam. So you might have to take a break, but honestly, it's in your organizational skills. Like, so if you're using your CRM to do it, if you have a code that tells you this is a qualified donor, it's often called major gift prospect. I hate that language
Hmm.
because it makes it sound like they're not a donor yet.
Yeah.
And you might have something called major gift suspect, which I really hate that
Oh,
language. And that means they're in your pool. But if whatever your codes are called, suck it in, that's what they're called. But use them to your advantage so that when you're looking in your CRM, it's clear who is who, right? That you have those abilities. If you have the ability in your CRM to create an actual plan and put in your goal and cash flow it, do it in your CRM. If you have none of that, we actually use an Excel spreadsheet that helps do that. We call it the donor engagement plan, and it can be done in Excel. It really can.
yeah.
And it's not, this is not rocket science. It really isn't. But it takes dedication and persistence and sticking to it. That's the magic, or the secret sauce, if you will.
Well, the beautiful thing is, once you've gone through the difficult work of
Hmm.
qualifying and also cultivating, once you're done with qualifying, it's so much easier, right? Because you now have them qualified. I mean, every year, yes, you will do a refresh, but you probably are then qualifying, or if you have a mid-level program, bringing in qualified donors, maybe a 10 at the most, maybe some more. I don't know, but it's not 150 that you're trying to.
Yeah, you'll never have to do that again
Yeah,
unless you change locations and you're regionally based and you're starting
right.
all over. Well, there's that. But
Yeah, yeah,
but the change from the gift officer standpoint is when you have a fully qualified caseload, you know where you're going.
exactly.
You know what your donors care about. You can create plans. When something happens, you can say, "Oh, that Sam would love this." Like,
Yeah.
you know this.
Yes.
And you can get to know, internalize enough about 150 people where it's amazing what you can look at something and you can rattle off 10, 15 names because you know them. You're not looking at 500 names anymore.
Yeah. It's a whole difference. So, in your role specifically as a coach, how do you help these MGOs stay focused on this? And what are some of the ups and downs of that experience? And maybe you could give some tips to fundraisers that are trying to go through this, how to
Mhm.
stay on it.
Yeah. Well, from a coaching standpoint, depending upon how many qualified versus not qualified, I actually allocate the equivalent amount of time in my coaching session. So I'm signaling, if you have 50 qualified donors, you're going to get 15 minutes of our session. We're going to focus there, and we're probably going to focus 30 minutes on your qualification process,
Yeah.
unless there's something, a donor we have to talk about. So I'm signaling there about time allocation. Part of it is learning to time box, put on your calendar what you're going to do, when you're going to do it. Don't make it generic. Say, I'll be working on my qualification group 20, 22, 23, 24, 20. Put it right on your calendar. So you remember, if you can use your calendar to help you, that's going to be a big difference. And then over time, it shifts. You're shifting more time to your qualified donors because you have more of them,
Mhm.
and less time to the qualification process because there are fewer in the pipeline. But time box, you can't bounce back and forth all day long. You will make yourself crazy.
Yeah.
That's what I really do, is say, try to focus on this, and give it a good hour, maybe 2 hours, and then go over to something else. The other thing that helps is if you block the time on your calendar, it won't be grabbed up for meetings because it's already full, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So those are
Okay.
those are some basic things, and if you're
Yeah.
using a system like our donor engagement plan, the due dates are built right in there for you. So step number 1, open up your CRM, open up your donor engagement plan. What am I doing today? And that actually has your due date, so you can filter what's due today
Yeah.
and just
Yeah.
check it
That's
off.
so helpful. So
Yeah.
then at the end of this process, and now the major gift officer has been working with a qualified portfolio, what are the major differences you see between after it's qualified than before it's qualified?
The biggest change I see is confidence. And I'm not talking about just donors, gift officers who are brand new.
Yeah.
They just feel so much more confident in what their plan is for any given donor and what they're doing in a week. And that confidence is translating over into the relationship with the donors too. Because
Yeah.
a donor can tell when you're on the mark or off the mark. They're raising more money because they're listening and learning, and they have the bandwidth to pivot from, uh, I was going to ask 25,000 for this, but through conversation and everything I know, I kind of went in prepared, and I ended up asking for 100,000,
Hmm.
and it's coming from that deeper knowledge of the donor, that preparation you do before a face-to-face visit or a phone call based on what you know. And you just learn how to prepare scenarios. It's like magic in a way. And
Yeah.
it's fun to see the turning point. So last fall, I had somebody who's new, and it was right around the first week of November, everything clicked.
Yeah.
And boy, did he nail it.
Yeah. Because it is funny when we first start this process, there's a lot of pushback, you
Yeah.
know, because they're like, this is going to take me way too long. I don't want to
Mhm.
deal with this. And, but I think the key is, well, their managers saying, no, this is what we're going to do. But secondly, to have someone like you come alongside of them and then keep encouraging them along the way is just the key to the whole thing. Because there are times I'm very sure that it could get very discouraging where you might be putting out stuff and you hear nothing for a while. And you're just like, what am I doing? And that's when you need someone who's experienced and say, this is going to work. You just have to keep fidelity to this thing. And, you're doing great. You just got to keep going here.
Yeah.
That
Yeah.
is such a
So
key
you send
part of it.
out 25 surveys and one comes back. And
Yeah,
over time, you could say, wow, only one survey came back. Or you can say, I now know what this donor thinks and cares about. Like, you just have
exactly.
to flip the script
Yeah,
on that sort of stuff.
yeah. So for those listening here, if you really want to know more about qualifying, and hope you do, and I hope all of your portfolios are qualified, but if they're not, and you don't want to keep listening to this over and over on a loop, we do have a white paper on how to qualify your donors. And it is a step-by-step guide that takes you through this so you know how to do it. And I guarantee that it will be the best thing you've ever done as a major gift officer. It will make your life easier. You will sleep better at night. You will have
Mhm.
better conversations with donors. You will bring in more revenue. It will change the game for you. So please take advantage of that. That'll be in the show notes. Diana, thank you for sharing your wisdom and all of your experience of coming alongside of those major gift officers. And as I said at the beginning, you've worked with hundreds of people, and the fact that you've walked them through this process, it's got to feel really good that you've been able to help these good people love their job even more, you know? So thank you for that. And thanks for being on the show. And until next time, we'll see you soon.